You're listening to the Human Resource. My name is Pandy, and today's topic is it's a little different. We're not going to talk about the Department of Labor. We're not going to talk about the National Labor Relations Board. We're not going to talk about the Fair Labor Standard Act. I'm going to take you back to your own office, and I'm dedicating this show to actual human resource facilitators, representatives of human resources, because what I'm finding right now with all the things that are going on in the workplace, I'm finding individuals in HR getting a bit confused on exactly what their role is, what their purpose is. Why are you there? And I was talking to one of my students the other day, and she has just grown so much in the past 4 or 5 months that I've been working with her. And I'm so proud of her. She knew nothing about HR, and she's been with the company for 11 years. And she came in with the best intentions and this pure heart of, I'm going to do. And now that she's had a really good taste, and I've put her through the ringer on what HR actually is, she now has a whole different view. And I just kind of want to go over some things that I've been stressing with her. And I call it the hammer versus the rock. And what I mean by that, I know you're all going, what in heaven are you going to, how do you relate that to human resources? Well, here's my thoughts. And remember, after being in HR for over 40 years, I have found that when you're in this role of human resources, you have to be more solid and you've got to be confident, but you've also got to be grounded, like the rock and the foundation for the company. They're depending on you. And you're at all different levels of knowledge. You're at all different levels of education. You're at all different levels of expertise and experience. And that's why we have this show, to help you accelerate through your career. But all along, one of the biggest messages I send to HR people is, remember, your place is to be that go-to person, the partner that they need when things get a little rocky. How many times have you heard us talk about the cost of the HR role, or let's say the cost of personnel within an organization, is enormous. And mistakes within that area, that discipline of HR, can cost the organization its pure existence in some cases. The fines are horrible from the Department of Labor. The fines can get horrendous from OSHA, from wage and hour. It's just incredible. If we make mistakes, it can cost a company thousands and thousands of dollars. But if you're the rock and you ground yourself and not try to be something you're not, you're going to find that you're more focused and you're more able to deal with the challenges as they occur. So I have 5 different things for you to think about. Challenge yourself and really look at what you're doing as an impact, what kind of impact you're having on the company. Are you the rock, or are you the hammer, the individual coming in and trying to bash things up and change things up and exert your authority in ways that you really were never meant to do? So then first, what I want you to think about is, when you're creating policy, are you providing guidance on the labor laws, on best practices, on what's currently going on in the arena of employment? Or are you coming in and saying, no, we can't do that, we have to do this? No, we're going to rewrite that, or we're going to recreate that because I just don't like it. The employees are going to know who's boss. We're going to come in here and we're going to just rearrange all of this. I'm not putting up with this. And you know what? Some of you can just, shake your head on this, but I'm out there looking at multiple companies in a single day, and some of you are like this. Some of you have lost your understanding that you should be a guide. You should be teaching what good policy is. You should be teaching what the laws are and working with your teams strategically so that as they create policies and as you work together as a team to redesign, whether it's a handbook policy or a protocol for the department, you're keeping them grounded on what is possible and what might not necessarily be legal. Creating policy is probably something you're going to be doing on a weekly basis. Maybe you're already doing it, but do it grounded on the aspects of compliance. And don't go in there making change just to be changing. And that's my number 2. Don't create change just because you want to put your thumbprint on something. HR was never meant to be a change agent unless the company seriously has major issues. You're in there to go and advise, polish, refine, help them redefine, modify, update. You're not there to take and step all over the manager's feet. You're not there to go in there and tell them they don't know what they're doing as a management team. HR is supposed to be the one that they come running to say, hey, does this sound right? I'd like to make this change. What do you think? What have I not thought of? When you're the rock, you're trusted. They respect you. They know you're not going to judge them. They're safe coming to you. The rock isn't moving. The foundation of knowledge of what's right and wrong when working with employees and your personnel, that's who HR is supposed to be. Sure, you can tell them, hey, you know what, this isn't working, so have you considered this? Or I know of a new process I want you to consider as the manager of this department. Why not think of it this way? Or let's retrain the individuals to do something differently, more profitable, more efficient. But for you to go in and tell a manager, you have to, or this needs to change, you got to have a good basis by which to do that. Help him understand the why. Help him understand. Maybe even let her or him think that it's their idea. But help them understand the impact on the company if they don't do it this way and the impact of the company if they do. That's what a rock does. Guides, mentors, coaches. Number 3, HR was never meant to be the disciplinary. It's interesting. I was talking to a prospect today, and they said, well, we need you to come in and be the bad guy because we just can't stand up to them. And we're the softies. So we need you to come in and be the voice. That's to an extent true if my role as HR is to coach and train the existing management team so that they have a confident voice and so that the employees know that they're running the company. But an HR person who comes in and says, that person needs to be written up, I'm writing them up, and I'm going to go in there and tell them that I'm going to terminate them tomorrow or the next day if I ever see it again, that's not your role. And if it is your role, then I don't know that I would want to be called HR. That's not sure that's the best image of HR. Look, you're there to tell them when to discipline, because they should be partnering with you to say, look, I've got an issue. I've got a problem. What do I do with this employee? What do I do with this situation? But for you to be the one signing the disciplinary forms or signing the corrective action forms, you're doing the job of the manager. That's not what HR is supposed to do. That is being the hammer. Make the manager be the hammer. Make him be accountable for those decisions. Make him accountable or her accountable for the performance of that area. Number 4 is terminations. It's great for them to come to you and say, hey, I think we're to a point where we need to terminate this person. Because the rock should be walking them through and saying, hey, did you think of this? Do we have this documented? Do we have a signed policy saying they would not do this? Do they understand what company policies they've been breaking? It's good for you to be that voice to walk them through to make sure that it's not a wrongful termination, that they are being compliant, that they've done everything they're supposed to do. The due diligence has been met. So when the hammer is dropped, the termination is facilitated. No surprises. None. You did your job, HR. You got them through it compliantly. But don't be the hammer saying, well, I'm going to terminate them, because that's not your role. That really wasn't meant to be HR's role. And then the last one I want you to think about, number 5, the role of HR, is in many times I have seen HR representatives have to be the rock of emotional stability. One of my worst stories and one of the most impactful events in my life was when I was working for a major retailer years ago, and we got news that 14 of my 15 stores were going to have to close. And you can only imagine when you've got stores that have up to 100 people. Some of them had a few, actually a little bit more than 100. But we're having to face those individuals and help them walk through what this looks like. And then all the management team and helping them with the emotional turmoil of how do we deal with employees that are distraught. We got to keep them till we're able to close the doors. You as HR have to be strong. What about an employee who comes to you and tells you that they have cancer? What about an employee who comes to you and says, I'm sorry, my child's terribly sick and I'm going to need time away to be at the hospital with them? What do you do when you've got a business manager coming to you or a business owner and saying, we're going to have to lay off 10% of our team? And for those of you who are watching that were back there in 2008 through 2010 with me, you remember those days. The pandemic was nothing compared to the number of families that ended up being homeless because of the layoffs and no jobs, the housing catastrophe. Those were tough times. And I watched a number of HR people rise to the top because they were emotionally and stable enough that their teams relied on them. Look, whether you are a proper HR person or not, HR is a very special place to be. It takes a very special person. But you should be always thinking about being the rock, not the hammer. There are other people in the positions to be the hammer. Besides, I kind of like the sound of being the rock of the organization. You might too. Thanks for listening and watching The Human Resource.